This is Mark and Charity's Coffee Podcast.
Up on the podcast today with the numbers going up. Have you put together a provisional plan in the event that someone in your house tests positive? We'll talk about that because Charity has and I have not. And that kind of shocked me.
It's very shocking.
That's coming up. And why? Because they canceled a hockey tournament, for goodness sakes.
Not any hockey tournament. Let's give it its due here. This is the World Junior Hockey Championship. And I know it's a World Junior, but let's not dismiss the fact that many Canadians, this is part of their holiday tradition.
Sure.
I know it is in our house.
Yeah.
Boxing Day, you have the juniors on Boxing Day night. Like, it kicks it off and you're in it and you're watching these kids, because they're kids, remember, play their hearts out. And they really work hard to get here. So it is a big deal. And the fact that they canceled it, I was surprised.
I was surprised
Pleasantly surprised that they did that.
I was surprised that they did. But then I started reading the articles. And this is why this morning I claim I am the worst Canadian alive today.
Yes.
Because I didn't treat it as the dire situation that many of them did. And then I read a tweet just after the show from a hockey correspondent for one of the teams when speaking of said team's prospects that would play in the game. Mm-hmm. What brutal news. Now they won't be able to play in this development tournament and showcase what they can do. We're in a worldwide pandemic year 2. It's not the most brutal news.
It's not the most brutal.
Or have I just become so desensitized to all of this?
It's actually very refreshing. I'm not going to lie. When I heard it, of course, they're going to cancel it. Yes, it's too closed, too small of a bubble to have all these people in it. And for one to get it, which we heard over the weekend, the U.S. had to forfeit a game. They were the first ones. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, oh no, here it is. It's going to start. If they can contain it, great. But I'm going to be surprised if they can. And of course they couldn't. More teams had to forfeit. So they did the right thing by canceling it. But there was that part of me that was disappointed for them too. Disappointed.
Yep.
Not outraged. Not over the top emotional. Not saying this is the worst thing ever to come out of this, which is the article you read, the feeling you got from it. And that's ridiculous. No, of course not. It is a hockey tournament. It is.
If I didn't
Bare
know
bones,
any,
hockey tournament.
If I didn't know any better, and I do, I would have thought when I read 2 or 3 of the articles this morning, the common thread that seemed to run through it with the outrage of the writers was literally, now it's time to take it seriously because they canceled the World Junior Hockey.
Yeah.
Right? Like I kept bringing, it's like this isn't the worst thing that's going to happen today.
No.
Let alone the worst thing that's happened throughout the pandemic, but it seemed to be as if, okay, now we need to take this seriously.
Now we need to really look at what we're doing here. It's been 2 years.
Two things.
Let's
One,
go.
first of all, Edmonton, which is hosting it, hosted the Stanley Cup playoffs a year and a half ago in the bubble.
Okay.
To what I would call pretty good success. Kept the cases down. They were able to have a Stanley Cup playoff for the whole bunch of teams. So the World Juniors is in Edmonton. So on the one hand, they've got the experience. If anybody has figured out how to do the bubbling and make this work, it should be them.
And that's kind of what people thought going into it. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, they have a good track record. They know how to do this, so it should be fine.
Second thought, it's in Alberta. And Alberta is
kind of both sides.
Yeah, the Florida of Canada.
It really is.
That they just don't seem to have the wherewithal within their healthcare industry to be able to handle it. And I wonder how much that played into it. You know what? Now that I think about it, if this takes off, like what's their hospital / situation within the healthcare that if suddenly we introduce a whole bunch of healthy young people who come down with it quickly, holy smokes, what would that do to their healthcare system?
When it's already strained beyond capacity.
That it isn't just the hockey tournaments, now the geography of where it's being held.
But if you want to go down that road, you said your comments about Alberta. What team tested positive first?
Yeah, the American team. Yeah, I know. I know. Why am I not surprised?
You got to acknowledge that too.
Yeah.
And you can speculate and you can throw out why that happened, but it's kind of ironic. It's funny when you think, okay, number one, it's in Alberta, and number two, it was the American team that tested positive first.
So,
and it is unfortunate.
It is
I am
very
going to say it is
unfortunate.
Is it as dire as they make it out to be, this big catastrophe that, oh my gosh, now we have to pay attention. No, of course not. But I do feel bad for these kids because it is an opportunity for them to showcase themselves. Yes, many of them have already been drafted and they already have contracts with NHL teams. But for some of them, this is it. This is kind of where they go and before they move on to not the NHL, but another chapter of their lives. So I do feel disappointed that way. It's like the Olympics, though, too. It's like any world stage. Unfortunately, you don't get to do it this year.
Because I don't remember the outrage when the Olympics got canceled and bumped a year, like 2020. They moved it to 2021. Yes, everybody was disappointed for the athletes, but it didn't cause people who weren't taking it as seriously to say, well, wait a minute, we've canceled the Olympics. Maybe this is a bigger thing than I thought. Much like these articles did now that it's the World
and
Junior
the
Hockey
Olympics,
Championships.
I would say, are much more encompassing.
Yeah, because it's international.
Exactly.
It's not just hockey here in Canada.
It takes in all aspects of sport, not just one in particular. So I'm sorry that it outraged you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry
No, because the event, I thought, okay, but the reaction to it was like, I am really missing something here. Maybe because I'm not in that culture.
I don't know that you necessarily have to be in that culture because I am, and I understand it. I get it. And I don't have that feeling. As I pointed out this morning, though, I do think that there is even maybe a more extreme side to hockey where people, and not just hockey, but sports in general, you get so tied up into it. And the media doesn't help. Certainly those who cover it are in it so much that, it becomes this emotional, this dramatic.
Right. It is the most important thing.
It is the most important thing to them. But you also made the point, too, that people covering it should have a backup.
Yeah, like
it shouldn't be
like I understand,
all or nothing.
Like
if they get canceled,
that's got these games. I mean, to the bottom line and everything. I'll use the word devastating because that like you're putting everything on it, but you've got. I'm sure there's a backup plan, and I'm not criticizing them because I'm sure they have a backup plan.
But if all your programming is slated this week for the World Juniors and going into it, there's the possibility, even the slightest possibility that things could change, maybe have a different sport or a different topic.
Right. Have a whole
waiting in the wings, just
whole bunch
waiting.
Of poker reruns.
And you know what? This would be a great opportunity to maybe, even though the game's not on, they could still focus in on the players and do stories on them. And,
I wouldn't watch that. But it's something, right?
But it's something.
It's something.
To fill the time.
Yeah.
It's not so devastating for them.
I can't remember what it was that was it the NHL? There was something that was canceled in sport. And as a result, ESPN in the States had to fill. And so they filled with poker. And poker took off. And I'll never forget that. It's like, who's going to sit and watch people play cards? And the answer, everybody. Their ratings went crazy. World poker tournaments went up. If you wonder why.
Huge thing.
And that started mainly because football or baseball or somebody went on strike and there was no play-by-play 10, 15 years ago.
They had no other choice.
They had nothing to do. They had all this poker. So we'll just show them poker. And it just exploded.
Really?
So that's why I make the joke, put some poker on. People like it. Sit around, we learn how to play poker, then we play on our phones.
And nothing against bowling. I love bowling. But I remember they used to televise bowling.
Well, sure they did. Yeah.
Like nationally. And that was that's social.
Yeah.
That bowling.
Give them something.
Yeah.
You play by play.
There's lots out there.
There's plenty.
There's so much out there.
We'll see. You're going to end up seeing old curling from 2017. They got to fill with something. And so keep it interesting.
Yeah.
But, and then the discussion of, well, maybe we'll postpone it. We'll play this tournament in June.
No, don't do that.
So Canada has 2 wins, and we pick it up against Finland in June.
It's not the same.
Not nearly the same thing.
No.
Not nearly the same thing. But you and your husband.
Disappointing, not devastating.
That's the way I look at it.
There you go.
People on the inside think it's brutal and devastating in the end of the world.
No,
and
just disappointing.
And of all that
like
we've learned
else.
out of this, it's, perspective.
Exactly.
But you and Wayne actually have a plan in the event.
We've talked about it with him working at the hospital,
Yeah.
a hospital here in the community. They've had outbreaks at this hospital. They've had cases come in, patients come in. So it does come up in our house. What if? And we've had discussions here around the station too. And I know there's a contingency plan here at the station for us. So yeah, of course, we have talked about it. What if one of us tested positive? And the kids themselves were in contact with a fellow student last year. So we had to talk about that and deal with them isolating, but we could still go out and do things. So we do have, it's not a case of one of us moving out or being banished to the shed. But we have worked it out that if one of us does test positive, then we will isolate in the lower part of our house and the rest of us will live upstairs.
And so there's going to be some movement of who stays where and what bedroom. And
yes.
And then how do you get fed?
As long as one of us is still able to, that person will be responsible for feeding the other, making sure they get their meals.
Leaving a plate on the stairs, walking away?
It would probably...
Bell around your neck?
Just, no. Not going that far. We have technology. We can communicate through text. Our house isn't that big. We can holler at each other.
No, that's great.
But no, the cans. We'll have the tin cans with the string and just talk to each other. No, but we have talked. It would be. But it seems so funny to even do that.
That's what I mean.
When we talk about it, it's like, well,
yeah,
I would go downstairs and I would stay because we do have a separate bathroom and we have separate, like there's different entrances. So it's okay that way. But it just seems so... It would be really hard to carry through. Thankfully, we haven't had to put it into play yet. But the idea of it, in theory, will work. But to actually really think about it, it's like, could we do it? Could we really do it?
Like when the rubber hits the road. So Kath and I decided last night that if one of us gets positive, banish to the bedroom, where we have an ensuite, and that's it. There's a television.
Oh, so you get one room.
Charge cord.
For 10 days?
For as long as it takes. Yeah. We've decided that's the way that whoever does not is free to roam the house and has to cook, clean, do recycling, everything, shovel the driveway, whatever has to be done. And I'm assuming I'm the one that's sick for whatever reason, I guess, because I'm the one that goes out, does this, and Cass stays home for the most part. And so I'm assuming I'm the one that would get it. So I kind of made the call. I said, well, if it's me, and it would most likely be me, would you feel better if I just stayed in the bedroom with the ensuite? She's like, absolutely. And I will tape the door closed. I think I'm paraphrasing. But she said,
put towels along the bottom and so there's no cracks.
We'll have a table outside the door for food and anything else. And, and I said, we'll figure out laundry when it's over. Because I'll probably just wear the same pajamas for 2 or 3 days at a time, shower 3 times a day if I have to. But as you pointed out, now when we talked about it, I said, should I go grocery shopping tomorrow or Friday and get like a week's worth of groceries just in case one of us gets it?
See, if we both, and the other part of that is what if we all have to isolate?
That's the point.
And I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
We would need someone to get us groceries at some point.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. So that's what really prompted it. Like, let's get serious and what happens if. And we had never had the what happens if, like right down to the nuts and bolts of how we're going to do it in the event. And it was like, well, guy says, well, I'll just stay downstairs. Oh, okay, well, I'll stay upstairs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, that's a plan. That's like making a fire plan that says we'll go out the door.
We really haven't come up with a plan.
No, but you have talked about it because Wayne works at a hospital, and that's very responsible.
But we haven't, for you to be in a bedroom, that's, wow. I commend you for that because Wayne has the whole, and I assume it'll be Wayne more than me who gets it. I could not stay in a bedroom for that long. And that's why I say he would have, again, assuming it's him, the entire lower floor. And because we do have a door at the bottom of our stairs. So we would just close the door.
Okay.
And he would have.
Ours is open.
Yeah.
Bottom of the stairs. So it's interesting. And I think the responsible thing is to come up with that plan, like a fire emergency plan, like every other plan that you've got. Are you ready if somebody in your house does get it? Because it's happening. We have friends who have now tested positive.
Absolutely.
And for the longest time, I didn't know anybody who had it, and I didn't know anybody who had passed away from it. And now it's starting to hit home with the Omicron. And is it as dire as early on? No. Vaccinations have ensured that it's just a really awful cold with a terrible cough. And yet, from what I've heard of them, it's still very sufferable, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
So say what you will. And again, I go back to one of the comments I read about the World Juniors. Is, I can't believe that they canceled a tournament over a common cold. No, I don't know anybody who's got it who says it's a common cold. It's not.
Well, and
it's not something to be messed about. And I've had 2 vaccinations. That's what they've said. Like, I'm vaccinated and it was bad.
That's a little irresponsible to put that comment out there.
But that's what you read on social media.
Oh, certainly. Now, was that the reporter or was that just
somebody responding to
I thought that was the
report.
reporter putting that out there because that's irresponsible.
Somebody's like, there's a government again canceling something
opinion.
fun. Yeah, exactly. But people read that and go, yes, you're absolutely right.
Now,
I don't know anybody who's had it who says, no, it's just like another cold. No, it isn't.
But with the kids, it, of course, would be different in that scenario too.
Yeah.
I would not lock my kids in the basement.
Right.
We would just keep them at home, and therefore Wayne and I would both be home too. But we would have the run of the house, and we would all be. But yeah, it's funny you say that. It does bring pause. It does make you pause and actually, because when things started to lock down, even that thought of, okay, how is this going to really look? If grocery stores, if only one of us can go to the grocery store at a time, and we can only go maybe once, or they were suggesting you go every 2 weeks if you could, or longer.
Yep, load up.
Yep. Can we do that? And I remember us talking even then, you and I talking even then, okay, how are our habits, how have they changed? And I've kept most of them, but to talk about this more, it kind of brings it all back. And I'm wondering, okay, how long could we go without having outside help if we needed to all stay home, if we need to isolate? Because as you said, if it's just one of us, it's fine. The other one can go and do it, and it's
right. Yep.
Continue on as if. But
and if you both had it and one of you got like seriously ill, like, are you ready for it? And I'm not sure I am. So I was glad we talked about it last time. I'm glad we talked about it today. And I do not want to create a run on grocery stores. That is not what I'm talking about right now.
I'm still surprised it's taking you this long to have this conversation. Because out of the two of us, I would say you are much more conscientious, much more thoughtful when it comes to preparing for this.
I don't know. Maybe because I thought we've gone to such great lengths, Kath and I, to do everything scientifically possible.
Exactly.
That we would be the last ones to get it until
but now it's
creeping into the friends and family circle.
Okay.
Which has prompted us to say, okay, what do you think? How do we want to do this? And the other thing is with Christmas over, now the kids aren't around. They're adults, but
it's the two of you.
They've gone back. So it is just you and I. What do we do if we have to go into automatic mode? Because you and I are antigen testing daily to make sure that we're good in here. That if it were to come up positive, and then I would immediately be coming home. And that's why I'm going to stay, so it's like, what do I do that day? Like right away, what's the first thing that we do so that we do it right away? Because there's no, let's just hang out for 3 or 4 days and see how it goes. No, you don't do it that way. So anyway, that's what prompted that discussion. Okay, so
you don't do it that way.
No, I wouldn't say you do it that way.
No, okay.
I wouldn't say we share coffee mugs and can I taste your food? You sip my coffee. No, we're not going to do any of that.
None of that.
Not going to do any of that. No. So I hope it prompts a discussion anyway for everybody. And by all means, email us or text us at 613-962-0955 if you've got not better plans, but better thought out plans that I think that's a good
idea
thing to institute. Yeah. If you're thinking about something, or the way you've worked out communications with your friends, for example, that we're all in a circle where if one family gets hit with it, the rest of us we already know we're going to go into this, but like that would be such a great way to think about it. Are we ready for that phase of it in case that's what Omicron means, that we have to create within our bubbles action plans? And I think that would just be so responsible.
Well, and you mentioned the fire route, the escape route out of your home if there's a fire. It's very similar to that.
Yeah.
Very similar. That's a great analogy. That's a great thing to compare it to because it is a plan and something that you hope you never have to use.
Absolutely.
But if it comes down to it, it's good to know, okay, this is what we do. As opposed to waiting 3 days. I don't know. Should we go? I need to book this, or maybe you shouldn't be sitting here with me watching TV.
Yeah.
Maybe you should be. Do we need to wear masks? What's the protocol here?
Yeah, the day I'm still a guy, so I'm still going to say, I don't know if I want to bother the doctor. So that's why I wouldn't make an appointment. And that's why we don't live as long as women. Because we just don't really think it's that important to go and talk to a doctor about that lump. That's why we don't live as long. It's not the number one reason, but it's a contributing factor. So things to think about as we head into New Year's Day tomorrow. We're going to spend some fun time tomorrow about New Year's superstitions, like why your wallet shouldn't be empty and why the first person in your door after New Year's is an important person. Superstitions.
We didn't talk about it this morning, but one I was going to mention as well tomorrow is letting it out.
Letting it out?
Letting the old year out.
Wow.
And I thought that was really interesting. And I'm going to do it because I'm going to try and do everything I can tomorrow night.
Okay. Tell
to
us
make
all about it
2022
tomorrow.
better.
On the Mark and Charity Coffee Podcast here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and off of our social media sites. It's an AMA tomorrow. If you want to ask us anything, you can text us at 613-962-0955. Enjoy Thursday, December 30th. Back at it tomorrow. We're going to have Quinte West Mayor Jim Harrison on the show tomorrow, which is always fun. From the barn.
Love talking
From the
Mayor
barn.
Harrison.
What's going on in Quinte West in 2022 and his good wishes to you. All part of the show tomorrow.